And for all our trailblazers, yes, we have a 15% off voucher for Mac Online using the promo code SOHS2021. Happy shopping. So we're about to get into a risque topic for some, where we're discussing whether people and brands would rather be quiet than say anything wrong in fear of being cancelled. So I'm not going to be doing this by myself. I'm joined by powerful women. So very welcome to Farah Fortune. She, of course, is a businesswoman and founder of African Star Communications. Farah, what does success look like to you? Because like this red shade of lipstick that we all are wearing, and rocking, I might add, it still looks so different on all of us. So what does success mean to you, Farah, aka the pitbull in heels?
Firstly, thank you very much to Momentum for having me here today. Success to me is very different to what a lot of people would say success is. Success to me is the lights are on, there's food in the fridge, my daughter has clothes on her back. That's success to me.
We forget about those basics sometimes,
We do, and I think just because when I started this business, I was so broke. I lived in my car for a little bit, I was homeless, I didn't have a lot, and I lost a lot. So just the mere fact that I have those things and I'm able to pay those bills every month, to me that's success. To me that's I've made it. Because we live in a country that doesn't have so much. So to have those mere things to a lot of people, for me, is what success looks like. I'm very grateful to have those things. So I know my definition of success is very different to what a lot of people's definition of success is. A lot of people will be, success for them is the big house, the car, the fantastic business and the big bank accounts. And that's okay. Success just means different things to different people, and I'm fine with that. But to me, that's what success means to me.
Also chatting to Aisha Pandor, CEO and founder of Sweep South. What does it mean to be successful for you?
I think there are a couple of different avenues that I think about success in terms of. I think for me, it's really important that my home life feels successful and feels peaceful and harmonious. And so I'm married to my co-founder in the business, and we have 3 kids together. And I think first and foremost is just the feeling of home being a place where we all enjoy it. You know, everyone's getting along. It's a place where there's a lot of love. So that's the first thing, the most important thing. And then I think secondly, I am running a tech business, which is an industry where women are underrepresented, where black women are, underrepresented is putting it lightly, almost nowhere. And I have a competitive streak. So I think there's also a career element to me, and where I feel like I am continuously growing. I need to feel like I'm on top of the game in terms of my own criteria, though. So I define my own goals, and I need to feel like I'm reaching those goals. And then I think in between all of that, ultimately, and this was a big learning for me over the past 12, 15 months, you have to have inner happiness. And I think success and the feeling of yourself as a successful person needs to really come from internally. Do you feel like you're living a life in a way that's aligned with your values, that is aligned with where you want to be, that is, again, where you're giving out and receiving a lot more love than anything else. And I think that's probably the sort of overriding theme.
That inside-outside approach to success.
Absolutely, it's starting with inside, and it will influence everything on the outside, anyways.
So you and your hubby/partner, obviously very successful. You work well together. Have you ever regretted that decision?
Yes.
I love that honesty, ladies.
No, definitely, but short-lived. Short-lived. I think on the net, we really respect each other. I think it's such a gift to work with someone, and as a couple who are 2 partners in business, to really respect the work that your other half does, and to understand how hard it is, and how you're both contributing to something that's meaningful.
And then lastly, Sarah Jane, thank you so much for being here today. Do you think it becomes easier to own your success the older we become?
Thank you so much, Momentum, for having us here again this year. I think with age come many tough and good and easy learnings. And I think with those learnings comes wisdom. I love how my colleagues describe success. I agree with both of them. And I think for me, success is also about peace of mind. And I think the inner peace that Aisha mentioned, I think on a personal level, that comes with learnings and that comes with wisdom and that comes with age.
No, I
Age
love
too.
every birthday. It's like a celebration because I feel like the older I get, I step into more of myself.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I'm so low-key envious, of that process.
Yeah, and I think coming into a place of peace of mind and having those basics in place, a few bells and whistles are also always welcome too. And I think for me, success is also defined in terms of the collective. How, especially in South Africa, when we're sitting against such a backdrop of inequality and poverty, etc. Success for me in South Africa means bringing people along with you, and how can you inspire other women in particular to learn from your success, perceived success, and learn from your wisdom, and to keep creating more dreams and more results and more success.
Why do you think as women we do that? You spoke about your success and then you said perceived success.
Oh, yeah. Because I think, to your point, everybody has different definitions of success.
Yeah.
So what someone may perceive us to be particularly successful, but in our own minds, success might be having a good night's sleep and baking our own bread or something. So
Sarah Jane Bowden, cultural and strategic advisor. Would you also say that your definition of success has changed? And perhaps this is a question to all of you ladies. Is it something that is stagnant, or is it forever changing?
I think from a growth perspective, as you grow as a person and as a business person, your goals change. I honestly feel like as you achieve your goals, they change. So when I first started my business, it was just to make sure that I could buy a house and that I could pay my car off and those kind of things. And then when I got to those things, it was like, okay, now I need another goal. So I think as you grow, definitely your definition of success changes. I think my definition of success, just being able to be in a comfortable position, is definitely grown, but it's also my end goal. I do want to be comfortable. I do want to be in a place where I sleep at night because I'm not worried about how is the electricity bill going to be paid. And as business owners, generally, when you start your business, you're really not making money. You're literally taking your money and putting it back.
How long before we make money for all of us potential want-to-be businesswomen? Let's get real.
Do you know what? I think that's different for everybody. The statistic in South Africa is if you make it to 3 years as a business, you're successful.
How many years have you been in business?
It's 13 years. And
You're a success, darling.
I'm a success according to the stats, but I still think there's so much I want to achieve. And sometimes I still think, oh my goodness, I can't afford that yet.
Yeah.
There's still things I think, are way out of my budget.
Yeah.
But it's because I have to think, I need to pay this, and I need to pay this, and I need to make sure SARS is paid, and I need to make sure all those things are done. So, again, your definition of success is always going to change. Your definition of growth is always going to change. And I'm sure that the ladies sitting here completely understand that from a business perspective as well.
Farah, before we move on,
Sure.
so many people just want to know this question.
Okay.
How did Farah go from being homeless to the pitbull in heels?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to be very honest with you. I was married and I got divorced. And I have always been a person that was very full of pride and never wanted to ask anyone for help. And to get out of living in my car with my 3-year-old daughter at the time, which no one knew, my family didn't know, my friends didn't know, I didn't want to tell anyone because according to me, that was a failure. And eventually I swallowed my pride, and my daughter's father helped me get back on my feet. And I'm forever grateful for that. But I definitely took what I got and made a home for her and then built a business because I was able to know that my daughter was able to be taken care of. And I think that's one of the biggest things. When you have so many other things on your mind and so many other problems, it's really hard to concentrate on business, just as hard as it is to concentrate on family when it's, vice versa. And I think that's the thing we don't realize a lot about what you can do. When you really put your mind to something, you are capable of absolutely anything. And I never want to go back there. I never want to be in that position again. So I'm definitely going to do everything I possibly can that's within my power to make sure that I'm living a life I want to live. So it's definitely a case of, one thing I've learned about being someone in business is ask for help.
Ask for help.
There is help. Someone is going to help you. Even if it's 10 no's, the 11th one could be a yes. But ask for help. If you are going to be prideful in business, you are never going to grow.
So, Sarah Jane, this is something that many women struggle with. I mean, it's not just you, Farah.
Yeah.
We struggle to ask for help. It's like we have this intense need to be perfect, to be superwoman every single day. How do we become more vulnerable and see the strength in vulnerability and asking for help and support?
Actually, as Farah was talking, I was thinking about the fact that success also has a dark side. And
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
and
the
I think
dark
for
side
women,
of success.
I'm an advocate of women entrepreneurs, and I've done a bit of research, and nearly every single woman entrepreneur that I speak to speaks about the loneliness of success. And perhaps we can see it as, linked to the fact that maybe we're the first to do something. There's opinions around that, but there's also, sometimes when you are perceived or you shoot above or beyond, that can come with its own difficulties and challenges. So I think the loneliness of success requires that we actually find more of similar-minded and similarly successful women, and forge friendships and forge kind of groups together so that we can make it through those darker times and the darker side of success. I don't know if you agree with me, Aisha.
Completely. I mean, we were chatting earlier, and it's so refreshing to have that conversation where you're like, geez, it's actually really hard. And then the other person goes, yeah, oh my word, it's really hard. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And I think the way that you get around the sort of pressure not to ask for help is by doing it regardless of the position that you're in. Because I think if you are someone who's in what's regarded as a successful position, and you say that other women should ask for help, but you don't do it, that's not really fair. You're not creating a good example.
But also ask.
Also ask. Ask when you're in a position that's deemed to be successful. And I don't like the superwoman narrative. I don't like the idea that, well done for holding everything. No. We shouldn't be having to do that. We shouldn't be putting ourselves and other people in positions where you have to be a superwoman. That's unrealistic.
Thank you so much. So for our guests at home, you can also weigh in on the conversation. I must say it's been lovely chatting and just warming up. But we have an actual topic. And it's a bit risque, and we're going to get into it. I'm not alone. So our topic is called, no offense, being PC doesn't mean keeping quiet. Is this true or not? To keep quiet or to tweet? To say something or not to say something? Sarah Jane?
Sure. So I can only talk about my own experience, and I think as a woman in business, you do have a voice, you also have a position, and one of the struggles I had as an entrepreneur is that you are very much linked to your brand and linked to your organization. But on the other hand, I think if you know your values and if you know what the values of your business are too as an entrepreneur, then you feel much more comfortable speaking up and speaking out. And what I found is, because I actually did choose to speak up and speak out, we were talking about it yesterday and we were saying, I actually spoke up on LinkedIn, which is a platform, a business platform where, it's not always a place where people feel comfortable tackling issues. But what I found in my case is that it actually attracted the kinds of brands and the kinds of people that we wanted to work with. So by speaking up and sharing those values and those ideas, you actually attract people who are like-minded and who will support you. And who see what you're doing and who will take you forward. That's been my experience. I don't know if you've had a similar one.
Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to speak up when something is aligned with personal brand values. I think you've got to be careful not to tread into areas where you haven't researched properly, or it isn't something that is a personal interest or something that you know a lot about. So just jumping onto a bandwagon can be dangerous and can come across as inauthentic. And I think often speaking out is, even if it goes a bit pear-shaped, it's the way to generate discourse and discussion. And that never ultimately is a bad thing. So even if you've spoken up and people have not liked what you've said, ideally there's a bit of conversation about that, and issues can be brought out into the open and resolved.
I like how that adds to what you said, Sarah. When you speak up, yes, you might lose some friends, some followers, or even clients, but the ones who are in line with you, your passion, your purpose, your values, they will find you.
They will.
Farah, cancel culture. Oftentimes people speak out or they do something and they get cancelled.
Yeah.
To cancel or not to cancel?
To be honest with you, I don't necessarily think cancel culture works. And I say that because you see so many brands or people that say something, and one day they're cancelled, and then the next day they're fine. And I also think we have to understand that social media standards are much higher than normal life, real life standards. So how people think somebody should date you, what your food should look like, what you should and shouldn't eat, what you should look like in certain clothes. It's a very idealistic culture on social media. And I mean, I'll just use the baby, for example, which is a very recent case study I think that we can use. I mean, he had some very derogatory remarks to say about the LGBT community, and he apologized, and it wasn't taken the way he wanted it to. He then apologized again, and when his apology wasn't accepted, he took the apology down.
Sure.
So we do have very high standards in terms of what we think people should be saying, although in his case, I mean, I completely agree, because I think that you should not be having conversations like that and making such derogatory remarks about something that is so easily a discussion that could be had, rather than your personal view about what something is that's completely unacceptable, and we all know it's unacceptable. So do I think he's going to stay cancelled? I don't know. He's been cancelled from a lot of festivals recently, and I think that's very much in line, and I do think that's what should happen. I think
it's important.
And it's important to show that there is some sort of support and value, but cancel culture doesn't work with everything.
Okay, I hear you. So if it's not cancel culture, what do we do? Because I agree with you, Farah. It's just not sustainable. So if it's not cancel culture,
You engage.
Okay, how are we engaging? How do we do that?
You debate. If you don't agree with cancelling is shutting down an opinion before the person can respond. You're not teaching anyone anything by saying you're cancelled, keep quiet. You're teaching someone something by saying, why do you believe that? Let's engage. Where does that belief come from? I mean, sometimes I'm glad when people speak out and say something that is inappropriate, because that's how they behave in their private life, and they probably get away with it. And now at least it's out in the public, and and people are speaking about it. So I think you engage, and that is outside of social media how life works. You have a friend or a family member who says something, you don't agree with it, and you say, okay, let's sit down and talk this through.
But how many times must we engage? Especially when it comes to issues like homophobia, issues like racism, issues like sexism. So we're not cancelling, but at what point do we just stop engaging?
Well, that's where I think you don't support people. So then you pull festivals pull out of having people on lineups, brands disassociate. That's really what gets people, right? Is like in the pocket. But that's different from, me putting a hashtag and saying cancel X person.
I think it depends on how people like each other as well. Because I find we have a lot of abusers that are on social media that get a lot of support. We're not going to name names, but I'm just going to say we have a lot of abusers that it's factual that they are abusers.
This breaks my heart.
It does, and they get a lot of support. The brands still support them. They're not cancelled because I personally feel that people cancel people they don't like.
Yeah.
If you're a fave, you don't get cancelled. So cancel culture only really works if people don't like you. And I think
they were looking for an excuse anyway.
If they were just looking for an excuse, they were literally waiting. Because we were having this conversation yesterday, and I said, I feel people don't follow you because they like you. People follow you because they're waiting for you to mess up. And I think a lot of the time that's what it is. If cancel culture worked, we would not have as many abusers on our timelines as we do.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's individuals cancelling, and then there's structural, systemic
Can
cancellation.
we talk about that?
Yes.
Can we please talk about that? Because maybe there's more power in unity.
So I think, the DeBaby example, for me, the structural systemic cancellation is the festivals. Taking him off of their rosters. And it went quite quickly. It was 1 or 2. And then suddenly it was
101
10 or 12.
festivals.
How many?
101 festivals.
It's a hell of a lot. And suddenly that is impacting his finances.
Yeah.
And once it starts to hurt people's pockets, abusers' pockets especially, that's when people start to think about change, possibly on a deeper level. So I think, we can all cancel and unlike or block or delete, but there has to be systemic and societal kind of knock-on effects if we really want to see people reflecting on what they've done and changing, going for help, coming out and having those debates, engagement, etc.
I've also realized that people really are so different. You have people of influence who say, I will never, and I mean never, talk on politics because it touches me on my bag. People say they want me to speak my mind, but when I do, I lose gigs, even if I'm perhaps saying the right thing or the politically correct thing. And then on the other hand, you have greats like Naomi Osaka, Lewis Hamilton, people who are not just at the top of their game in their respective sporting fields, but who also have sort of become activists in their own right. Is that where all brands are heading now?
Yeah,
where
I do think there's a trend.
Almost problematic to be too PC.
I know there's a steak brand. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called Steak
Sorry?
Steak MHHH. It's a brand of steak meat, beef goods in America. And that brand has actually got philosophers and social scientists running its marketing campaigns. And, this is another thing we chatted about. Who's talking on behalf of your brand? So who is the agency that you've hired, or who is the team that you've hired? Are they equipped to have these conversations? What are their politics? And I think right now there's just so many minefields out there that you can put your foot in. So you really need to make sure you have the right people talking on your behalf as a brand. And Steakum is quite entertaining. Will it last? Will other brands start doing it? I do think so. I think there's a lot more freedom in terms of brands speaking up and getting involved.
I love when brands speak up, and I love when they get it right. Farah, what examples do you have of brands who just
I think one of
it right?
The best examples I can think of is Joko Tea. And I think they did it so well because they're speaking about a subject that you wouldn't necessarily align with tea, and they speak about abuse. So there's an ad on TV, I know it's been going for quite some time, and I know it's prominently been played this month, where there's about 4 or 5 women sitting around the kitchen table, and they're all having tea, and the tea pot goes off and it starts whistling, and they all just look at each other and they hold hands, and then it comes on that this is about GBV. And you would never really align a tea brand with GBV, but they've done it so well that you think, okay, you know, what happens when someone comes to you and says, I'm being abused? You sit down, you guys have a conversation, there's tears, there's support, and they're saying, you know what, we're here, sit down, let's get together, we're having a warm drink, let's let the tears roll, and we're going to talk about abuse. And it works so well for them. And I was very surprised when I seen the ad, because I never would have imagined the brand alignment so well, but whoever did the ad and whoever thought of that campaign, kudos to them, because they've used a subject that is so prevalent in South Africa with a brand that is so prevalent here as well, and they've merged the two to really speak to each other and speak to women and say, when you buy Joko, you are supporting the fight against GBV, and that is a great way to get people to buy your product and support something that they absolutely believe in.
I love that. Sometimes speaking your mind
Yeah.
is not just the right thing, it can actually help your business.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? And just talking about perhaps the differences, but also the golden thread between you as an individual and then your business, Sweep South, which I use. We thank you.
It's our pleasure. I think especially when you're a founder and not just a CEO, you build brands that are naturally going to be associated with who you are, and you can't get away from that. And I think it's really important to build businesses that do reflect your values, because then it makes it easy. You don't have this sort of disconnect between who I am and what I reflect and the brand that I've built. And so in Sweep South's example, for example, you know, part of starting the business for us was about building technology that connects two sides, but it was also about helping women who are disenfranchised, unemployed, underemployed. And over the last year, when people weren't able to work, because of our values and them being aligned with, you know, the brand and what we do with Sweep South, we didn't just sit and do nothing. We raised a 12 million rand fund to support domestic workers. Airbnb is another great example where it's a brand that has really tried to, I mean, their biggest supporters are their hosts and people who stay in homes. And they retrenched last year. And the CEO and founder, Brian Chesky, put out this really heartfelt, empathetic, emotive letter where he said, you know, we're having to retrench people and this breaks my heart. And these are the things that we're going to do to make sure that everyone who loses a job is okay. And I think where you have that synergy between the people who run the business or founded the business and the brand and what it stands for, I think those are good examples, and that comes across as authentic.
Authenticity.
And I think I'm involved in a few advertising industry awards, judging things, and we're definitely seeing a huge rise in brands looking to do more impact and or looking to have more impact and do more impact work. I would say in the last kind of awards that I was involved in, maybe 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 of the entries were each had, you know, maybe it was GBV, maybe it was unemployment, maybe it was, you know, child-headed households or women or gender, LGBTQIA+, etc. We're seeing brands get behind these needs and really come up with innovative ways of addressing them. I think what's important is to do it in a long-term, sustainable way, once again, that has bottom-line impact on people's lives. So you're not just painting a wall once every 3 years. You know, you're actually building the wall and helping to put furniture inside and helping people to build that furniture, etc. So I just think it's how we do impact work as brands that matter. Yeah.
Many women also think that it's the PC thing to do, to just be humble and just to accept and be so grateful to whatever anyone is offering to you. And I think even more so during this time, during this global pandemic where so many people are just grateful to have a job. Within that, how do we as women still own our space and get paid our worth? How do we demand that? How do we own that? And this is, please, free feel.
I mean, you've got to make sure that firstly you know your worth.
Yeah.
So, repositioning yourself in your work, yourself at your company, from being, I'm so grateful that I'm here, to this is a symbiotic relationship. And as much as I'm grateful I'm here, I'm contributing real value. And I should be remunerated for that, whatever that means to me. So I think the first thing is, know your worth, but also make sure that you're adding value. Because I think they're almost like two camps. There are women who humble and who don't sort of own what we do. And then there are also women who are like, I'm going to be difficult and, I'm going to own my worth. But you're not focusing on the value, actually add value. So make sure you're adding value. And then it becomes difficult to, when you're having a conversation with your employer or whoever it is, for them to say, well, I'm not going to do it. Because they know that there's a chance that they could lose you and you add value.
And I think we also have to ask organizations to change policies. And, as much as we can be positive and ask for what we believe we're worth, if the policies aren't there, it's not going to happen. So I think when women do break through, we need to make sure that that change is happening at a policy level in organizations. So it doesn't happen again.
Across the board.
Across the board.
Farah, what do you know about negotiating and asking for what you deserve? What do you know now that you perhaps didn't know 10, 20 years ago? Because there are many young women looking up to the three of you saying, wow, how do I get to be sitting on this, on this couch? I want to be there.
I think with me, and I can only speak for myself, for me it was very much a case of I never wanted to walk into a boardroom and I never wanted to sleep my way to the top. But I never judge anyone who does, because we all have different bills to pay. And at the end of the day, you need to do what is good for you.
No judgment.
No judgment whatsoever. Doesn't mean I didn't think about it, doesn't mean I wasn't tempted to do it. I just didn't want to. Did it hinder me? Yes. So much. I've lost out on so much work. I've been kicked off so many projects.
Relatable content.
And I've been kicked off so many projects. I've lost so much work. But at the end of the day, I know that I feel the respect for myself. Doesn't mean, maybe if I look back, would I have made a different decision? I don't know. Maybe I would. Who knows? But it is really hard to negotiate when you're not in a position of power. That's one thing I do know. As a woman in business in South Africa or anywhere in the world, any boardroom I've walked into that is predominantly men, and sometimes even women, if you are not in a position of power, it is really, really hard to negotiate your position there. What I can tell you, though, is if you want to be in that position of power, one trick I have learned over the years, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you're going to get from it. Nobody cares how much you're going to make. They care what they are going to benefit. So when you are negotiating, you always tell that person, that group, that boardroom, that company, what they are going to get from it. How much money they're going to make, how much awareness they're going to make, how they're going to be in a position of power themselves. People are generally out there for themselves. So the minute they know what they are going to get from it, you'll pretty much walk out of that room with what you want. That is the best advice I can give to someone to put themselves in a negotiating position. Once someone realizes what they're going to get, then they will listen to what you're going to get. Tell them what they're going to get, tell them how they're going to position themselves, and they'll pretty much listen to you after that. That's the best negotiating tool I can give you.
Aisha, so many questions coming through for you. So many people also loving and using Sweep South. People want to know, what's the biggest mistake you've made as a businesswoman? Because I think that's also part of owning our success, owning the things that maybe didn't go as planned.
I mean, there's so many. There's so many, every day, every week. But I think some of the biggest ones are, so looking back, I think we really could have articulated what our brand was about earlier. I think we were really nervous getting into a space where we knew we wanted to make meaningful change, but where you are really trying to fight centuries of exploitation. And we were kind of like, how do we not mix the message of the technology and connecting people with the message of what we're actually about in terms of trying to uplift? And I think if we had really thought about that message more holistically earlier and not been afraid to sort of tackle the difficult issue of exploitation and domestic work and what people are paid and how they're valued, I think it would have helped us. Running out of money and looking after the finances of the business. I mean, we've raised a good amount of funding rounds, but it always feels like we make it just in time when we raise a new funding round. And that's the story that you never get in a Sweep South funding announcement, but it's like the blood, sweat, and tears that went behind, making sure that that all fell together in time. And then I think working with people, and not necessarily that we've done it badly, but I just think really being intentional about the people that you bring into the business, how they can complement your skill set, how they can complement, again, the value and culture of the business, and the emphasis on values and culture, actually. Super important. But just bringing in people too quickly because you needed someone in that position, bringing in someone who had a great CV or worked at a company that you admire, but actually you didn't really think about personality and culture and if they'd be a fit with everyone else. And then also just growing too fast. And I think when you start a business, like it's in your, never in your wildest dreams did we think that Sweep South would be this big. And so you never think of growth as something that could be problematic. But we've had periods in time where we've grown too fast and quality's been affected, team morale has been affected because everyone is working around the clock to try and keep up, and everyone, while they're doing that, feels like they're not doing a good enough job. And you're not taking care of your physical and mental health because, 16-hour days and 4 hours of sleep.
Balance. We all
we did that for way
work
too
towards
long,
that.
for way too long.
So we've got a question for the entire group. When we want to own our success, being PC and being afraid to rock the boat may hold us back. So this is a question from Karabo, who wants to know, how do we overcome this by using the power of our voice? So I don't want to be PC anymore. How do I step into my power? How do I own my voice?
Sure. I was just caught up in everything you were saying. And I saw you nodding as well.
Yeah. I mean, I could listen to all of you for 5 hours, many hours, but
I think the point is that it's messy. You know,
Yeah.
it's messy. Starting a business, trying to grow your career is messy. And I think one of the mistakes we make is wanting things to be smooth and perfect and to go our way, and it just doesn't work out like that at all. So when I think of the number of errors I have made a lot of mistakes, but it's also when we learn and how we grow. And I think one of them would be to say, expect to rock the boat, expect to lose some opportunities, and expect to gain some things which you wouldn't have thought about. Because if you know your values, again, be clear on your values. What is it that's important to you? What impact do you want to create in South Africa if you're here? Especially, there's just so much opportunity to create impact. Know those values and then go for it and expect a bit of mess along the way.
a little bit of splash. Rock
A
the
lot,
boat, rock
actually.
the boat.
Expect a lot of big waves. Big waves, small waves, good seas, bad seas, Those mythologies around success being smooth and easy really need to be debunked.
Yeah. It's complex. It's so complex. And being in any sort of public position is complex and it's hard because people get a piece this big of you and make assumptions, and that's all they have to go on. So that's not their fault, but they make an assumption about your entire person and entire life and everything about you based on this tiny bit. So I think it's complex. I think, again, that's why don't stick your neck out for every single thing under the sun. It's not worth it. The risk is not worth it. But stick your neck out on issues that you feel passionately about. because even if there's backlash, it's okay. I would also say don't, like, using the boat analogy, don't sail the seas alone. Have someone, and I do this, I sense check things that I say with other people as well, and I'm like, does this sound crazy? Is this easy to be misinterpreted? So have people also who can give you feedback. It also helps because if things go south, they can stand up for you as well. And go south. Not in a good way this time, though. They can stand up for you. Don't sort of do it in isolation because being PC and what is offensive is so subjective. There are cultural nuances. There are national nuances. There are nuances that depend on what else is happening in the social media environment. So it's very complex and a minefield, and have a friend.
Question from Michelle saying, going back to what we learned from Ilana today, find the right structures of support. And I mean, you've all touched on that, how you are not just women sitting here, but how supported you are. So how do we avoid being PC in our homes or with our family or friends to ensure that they support our success the way we need them to?
I think you have to be very open with your family about the intentions you have for yourself. I started my business when my daughter was 3, and one of the biggest things I went through is mom guilt, because I was up really early in the morning trying to work, and as soon as she woke up, I would do whatever I needed to do with her, and then get her off to nursery school, and then do everything I needed to do during the day. And then as the business took off, I had to be out at night as well. So I had to be at events, I had to network, I had to do events. There was so much going on that for a very long time I suffered mom guilt. And I was just like, well, if her dad had to do this, no one would say anything because everyone just expects him to work. So why wouldn't I expect myself to work? So it was one of those conversations I needed to have with myself. And as she grew older, I kept having the conversation with her and my family because there was so much and so many important things that happened in my family that I missed because I was working and everyone was like, oh, Farah won't come, Farah won't make it, Farah's the workaholic, you know what I mean? And I also had to come to have a conversation with myself to say, oh, well, am I really finding the work-life balance here? Am I really ever going to find it? Is this what I want to do with my life? And that was a really hard decision I have with myself. But the one thing I realized is when I started talking to everybody in my family, when I started to have those conversations with my daughter, so that she could understand what exactly it is. Okay, mommy's working. You want that new toy? You want that bike? I need to go work. It was kind of a negotiation because she was still really young and she didn't understand.
That. Start them young.
Yeah,
negotiate.
because she didn't understand the dynamics of it. Of course. and that's really how I learned to understand it and to negotiate with my family in terms of I'm going to give this time, but I also want to build because I had my own dreams and I really wanted to work on them. And I do that with everything with my daughter now, and we have a very open relationship. So whether it's school, whether it's life, whether we're having a conversation about sex, I'm very open about everything because I don't want her to think I'm hiding anything from her or keeping anything from her. And it's really helped me a lot in my business as well because it's helped me manage my clients' expectations too. Because now I have conversations with them to say, okay, this is what you are paying, this is what I can give you, this is your expectation, this is the time I can give you, this is what you are paying for.
Love that. Da. So something happened. You said so many things, but you said a word and the reaction from the ladies on the couch, you said mom guilt. And even here on the chats, all of the moms raising their hands, mom guilt. So mom guilt is clearly very real. Aisha, how do you fight it?
It's tough, and I think it's natural that in the sort of society we live in, you're going to feel guilty for not being able to be a 100% of the time full-on mom to your kids. I've got 3 kids, and I think a big sort of aha moment for me was I would exactly the same pattern of just get home, and open up the laptop and just, looking after family or being with family was the tick box stuff and then get back to work. And I remember my eldest daughter, who's turning 12 tomorrow, coming to me, and she wanted to say something to me, but I had my laptop open. And so she came and said, "Mom," and then she noticed I had the laptop open and went, "Oh," and walked away. And the learning that she had gotten is that if my laptop's open, even if I'm at home in the evening, I'm unavailable. Like, don't bother me with whatever it is that you have. And so the way that I try and manage it now is I'm a schedule freak. I'm a calendar and diary. I had this morning that I needed to check in with the cake people to make sure that her cake is fine tomorrow, and that's something that was in my calendar. She does horse riding, like Ilana, and horse riding is booked out in my calendar. So I make sure that because so much of my life is dictated by a calendar, there are slots in there that are meaningful time that I can spend, or time that I can spend making sure that I'm looking after family. And then also just being honest. I think it's so important. I think to be someone of integrity, you have to be able to be honest when it's hard. It's easy to be honest when it's easy and when the conversation's easy and everyone's like, "I know that,
Sure,
that's fine."
I felt that. I really felt that.
And saying like, I'm not okay with the level of support I'm getting from you right now. Or I'm really under a lot of pressure. So please, can you just help me or give me a little bit of extra support? I think
Thank you, Aisha.
that's so important. But also being compassionate with whatever the response that comes back is.
Sarah Jane, so this is a question for you and the group, but I would love to start with you on this one. Let's go into the workspace. As leaders, how has being upfront and non-PC helped you resolve conflict and moments of tension with your teams?
Sure. So just to come off of what Aisha was saying again around honesty, I love the notion of radical candor. I can't remember which book I read it in years ago, but it was something that stuck with me. And as a person, I'm a very straightforward person. And I think honesty, in my old company, being honest was one of our top values. And I think you have to be straightforward and you have to have uncomfortable conversations. I think even when you're building a team, you need to build a team of people who share your values. And unfortunately, sometimes that is not evident in a CV or in an interview. And sometimes you can have people in your team who don't share your values. And that can be problematic when it comes to PC and non-PC stuff. But I think you have to be straightforward. People have to be okay with discomfort, uncomfortable conversations. And then I think you have to be consistent. So you can't do something this year and then something in 3 months' time that contradicts how you handled situations. You have to develop policies. Again, you need to get things put into processes and into documents so that when it happens again, you have some precedent to go back to and say, well, here it is. This is how we handled it last time. Let's try it again. But maybe we can learn from the mistakes last time and improve on it slightly. But I just wanted to say as well, it's not only mom guilt. It's daughter guilt. It's daughter guilt. It's sister guilt. It's wifey guilt. If you've got a partner.
So much guilt.
There's
so
a lot
much
of guilt.
weight.
And I also think the other thing I wanted to mention is that all three of us are operating businesses or in a space that hasn't been done before. So there's no guidebook and there's no precedent. So not only are we first wave women in business
I love that,
or
first
entrepreneurs, but when did Sweep South as Sweep South? Because it's they're the first people to come up with that amazing solution, So we're working social media. Both of us work in social media. We didn't even know what Facebook was 12 years ago, So we've had to build businesses
around that.
We're not in law or medicine or something that's been around for centuries. So we've had to make up stuff as we go. And I think with that, you're going to have people that come along with you and that help you to build those policies and those processes. So entrepreneurship is wild.
First wave woman, and then you make it look so easy and so good. Eh?
It's the makeup.
But you've got to use that position and call things out, for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
One last question, and this is actually from one of my very first mentors, Celeste Stewart. She says, why is it when women ask questions and speak up, we are still ostracized or mocked?
I think because women, there's still a lot of people who think that women have a place and that's where they should be.
Yeah.
And women shouldn't have opinions. And why do you have an opinion in the first place? Who gave you the right to say anything? And I think that is something that as women, and I think we're very much just as a society, the first wave woman after the woman who went to go and march for rights, you know, and we are learning and we're trying to understand, but we also come from a very patriarchal society where misogyny is still a huge thing. And there are so many misogynists out there who believe that a woman's place is in the kitchen. So when you're sitting in a boardroom and you have a bigger position than half the men that are sitting in there, or you have a bright idea, you're always going to get a lot of men who sit there and try and make you feel really small because they actually don't know what the hell is going on. And how dare you know what's going on? How dare you have a better idea than them? And how dare you get paid more than them? So I think that's the, you know, that's the problem. And we shouldn't stop speaking out, and we shouldn't stop saying what we think, because at the end of the day, the more normalized we make it, the easier it is going to be for the next generation of women. So our job is really to make sure that the next generation of women are not sitting on this couch having the same conversations. They're rather having a conversation about how amazing their bank accounts are. And that's the conversations that we're going to have, because we shouldn't keep having to do this for another how many years.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me here today, ladies, and I can't wait to see what all of you do next.
Thank you.
And
Thank
also
you.
coffee
Thanks.
sometimes.
100%.
So before we wrap things up, some of our guests have some questions for Lovey, and she'll be dialing in to answer a few. Hello from Zanzi.
Hi.
Hi.
Wow, the one, the only, Lovey Ajayi Jones. Hey,
Oh
New
my
York
goodness.
bestseller. My favorite Nigerian girl. I'm still working on getting a Nigerian friend, by the way, hey? Thank you for writing your book.
Thank you for
I
reading
feel
it.
like
Thank you
it's
for taking
not
time
just
with
yours, it's ours. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
it. Indeed, my pleasure. So glad I could offer this book to the world.
So, Lovey, this is a first for me. I don't know if you can see, but I'm shaking just a little bit, because when we do things for the first time, there's that anxiety, there's that stress, but I'm wearing my grandmother's ring to just anchor me and center me. And your book, oh wow, what a read, what a joy. I'm gifting it to all of my friends this Women's Month. So thanks for making gifting easy. And I love, love, love how you talk about that incredible grandmother of yours. Please tell me more.
So I'm also wearing her ring. This
Oh
is her ring.
my goodness, can you be my Nigerian friend?
I'm saying, like, right? So it's, you know, I think my grandmother for me has been a beacon. She's been the person who gave me permission to be this woman that I am today. She kind of did it not necessarily by telling me, but showing me what it looked like to be somebody who takes up space without apology. And she was bold, and she was true, and she took no shit, but she was still so deeply loved. And I think we all know an older Black woman especially who moves in the world in that way, who you can't check her, who has been through hell and back and can tell the story, and they move with this different energy that's just so bold and just so big, and they take up all this space, and they don't let anybody make them feel like they're not enough. But I'm like, yo, like, what if I had my grandmother's energy and her vibe and that charisma before I turned 65? What if we all carried that audacity before we are gray? And that for me is who my grandmother represents, and who I think she relates. She basically is the every grandmother. Like, we all know this woman in some form. And those women are people we should follow their example.
So, Lovey, we all love you here in South Africa. The chat line, you are breaking our chat line. The messages are coming through too quickly. One from Celeste Stewart, who is, I think, one of your biggest fans here in South Africa. She wants to know, how can we encourage more curiosity in women as the first step in learning to speak up? I mean, your book is all about becoming a professional troublemaker, so give us the tea.
Love it.
Ooh, embracing curiosity. So one, be curious about yourself first. You know, in those moments when we are feeling uncomfortable, feeling fearful, be curious about like, why? You know, what am I afraid of? What is the thing that I want to say, and why don't I want to say it? What is the thing that's stopping me? And ultimately, what is going to happen if I do say it? What is that worst case scenario that I'm afraid of? I think curiosity is asking questions of the people in the room. So if somebody says something that offends you, that you're like, I don't know if it sits right, ask a question, get clarity, as opposed to making the assumption about their intention, about what they meant to say. Just get clarity. And I think we can't ask too many questions.
Deacon Lady Rose wants to know, what is the fine line between letting something go and not giving up? Very important question.
Yes, the fine line. Ooh. It depends on the why. Why are you letting it go? So if you're letting it go because it truly does not serve you, let it go. If you're letting it go because you realize that it's not the path that you're supposed to go down, let it go. But if it's something that you wake up thinking about, you might want to stick with it a little bit. If it's something that invigorates you and excites you and you have dreams about it and you can't stop talking about it, fight for it. You know, there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to want that are going to be tough, that we will have to step outside of our comfort zone or do the thing that feels unnatural or grow to become the person who can do that thing. And I think those things we should double down on. You know, again, like I was blogging for a long time, and there were definitely times when I was like, I should let this go. It just never worked out like that, because I'd wake up being like, I need to write something. And it was like letting it go felt like the wrong decision. If it felt like the right decision, I would have done it. But it felt like the wrong decision, so I never did it.
How to find the right people to support and push you forward. How did you find your tribe? A big topic that has come up today is this thing of we don't have to do things alone. So how do you select that tribe, that team?
So you get the people you want around you by being the person you want around you. You build the squad and you make the friends that you want by being the friend somebody would want. So that means working on your own stuff. What are the things that you're dealing with and working with that might not make you a healthy friend? Are you the person who easily gets jealous when her friend is winning? Then how are you going to get the friends who cheer you on when you win? So I think we have to start with ourselves. Once you are the person you would love to be a friend of, you will start finding these dope people, because dope attracts dope. Like, I've never had a hard time finding people to be in my squad. It's not like I go out looking for friends. I'm actually never team, let me find new friends. But I make new friends because I just forge meaningful relationships by being somebody who I would want to be friends with. I am, you know, I exercise the same principles I would want of my friends, you know, people who think about me when I'm not in the room, people who cheer me on truly and are happy for me. I'm that person for my friends. People who will, you know, commit to seeing me be at my best by challenging me. I'm that friend to my friends. So ultimately, the qualities that you want in a friend, make sure you embody those qualities and you will find those friends.
Lovey, you talk a lot about the importance of your name, and I love, what do you call it? The way you intro yourself, that song and dance, that it's almost like, say it again?
The Oriki.
How do I write my own personal wiki?
So you write your own Oriki. I have a formula in the book for you.
I know there's a formula, and I also know you have your own. Do you mind reading us yours so that we can just have an idea of how much we can hype ourselves up?
Yes. So I am Lovey of House Jones, first of her name, assassin of the alphabet, bestseller of books, conqueror of copy, dame of diction, critic of culture, sorceress of side eyes, rocker of fierce shoes, taker of stages, Nigerian noble, and Chi-Town creator.
Woo! 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 So you've got a formula in your book. We all are going to buy the book, those of us who don't have it yet. But do you want to share that quick recipe with us, that how-to?
Yes. Yes. So you start with your name. Are you the first of and last name? Number, so again, I'm Lovey Ajayi Jones. So I'm technically Lovey of House Jones, first of my name because there is only one of me. If you're a junior, then you're second of your name. And then a noun that is a descriptor of something that you are. So ultimately, it's an exercise that works no matter who you are, no matter what you do. It is a really great way to just hype yourself up, especially in those moments when you're like, I'm about to go into a salary negotiation, or I'm about to have a tough conversation with my friend. Let me remind myself of how amazing I am. And I think we all need it.
Mm-hmm. So, Lovey, when many people think of role models, they think of you. And it was so interesting to note the women who you admire. Michelle Obama, you mentioned Beyonce, your grandmother. Would you say that all of these women you look up to have something in common?
Yes. I think I look up to women who don't wait for permission to be who they want to be. I look up to women who constantly grow. And I look up to women who are like just bold in this world, because what they serve as are possibility models for everybody else. They say, I'm going to put myself on this front line, take some hits on your behalf, so you coming behind me don't have to take as many hits. And I think that's important for any role models and anybody who wants to be of visibility. You have to be willing to take some hits so somebody else's path can be easier.
Thank you so much, Lovey Ajayi Jones.